the Titan of the Dardanelles. The epic story of Seyit Onbaşı.
Chapter 1.
Prologue. The silence before thunder. The Aegean dawn breaks cold and grey over the Dardanelles Strait on March 18, 1915. The water lies mirror still, deceptively peaceful, as if the world itself holds its breath. But beneath that calm surface, destiny coils like a spring wound too tight. From the heights of Mecidiye Fort, Corporal Seyit Ali watches the horizon. He is 25 years old, built like an oak, with hands calloused from years of labor and war. His uniform is worn, patched in places where shrapnel tore through fabric months before. He doesn't speak. Neither do the men beside him. They know what's coming. Out beyond the straits, shadows emerge from the morning mist. One shadow, then another, then a dozen more. The Allied armada, 18 battleships, the pride of Britain and France. Dreadnoughts and pre-dreadnoughts, each one a floating fortress of steel and fire, capable of leveling cities. Their guns can hurl shells the size of a man across miles of open water. Their armor can withstand almost anything the Ottoman defenders can throw at them. Almost. The soldiers at Mecidiye Fort check their weapons one more time. They've been checking them for hours. Some pray quietly. Others smoke cigarettes with shaking hands, watching the smoke rise and dissipate in the cold morning air. A young gunner, barely 18, asks if anyone thinks they'll survive the day. No one answers. They don't need to. This is the moment everything has been building toward. Months of bombardment, weeks of preparation, years of decline for an empire that once ruled from Vienna to the gates of Persia. The Ottoman Empire is dying. Everyone knows it. Bleeding out slowly from 1,000 cuts, inflicted by nationalism, revolution, and the grinding machinery of modern war. The Balkan Wars stripped away its European territories. Internal strife tore at its foundations. And now, the great powers of Europe want to deliver the killing blow. If the Allied fleet breaks through the Dardanelles today, they will sail into the Sea of Marmara. They will train their guns on Constantinople itself, the ancient capital, the jewel of the East, the city that has stood for more than 1,000 years. They will force the Ottoman Empire to surrender. They will open a supply route to Russia, changing the balance of the entire war. They will rewrite the map of the world. Unless the men in these forts stop them, the stakes could not be higher. This is not just a battle. This is not just one day in a long war. This is the moment when history pivots on a single hinge, when the actions of ordinary men in an obscure fort on a nameless hill will determine the fate of nations. And standing among those ordinary men is Seyit Ali, a peasant from a forgotten village, a soldier who joined the army because he had no other choice. A man who will soon discover what he's truly made of. At 11 a.m., the first salvo screams across the water. The Allied bombardment begins with a roar that shakes the earth. Shells the size of wine barrels arc through the sky, trailing smoke, before slamming into the hillsides with explosions that throw dirt and stone 100 feet into the air. The noise is beyond description. It's not just sound, it's pressure. A physical force that crushes thought, that makes your bones vibrate, that turns your skull into a drum beaten by an invisible giant. Inside Mecidiye Fort, the soldiers crouch behind their guns. Dust rains down from the ceiling with each impact. The fort shudders. Stone cracks. Somewhere below, a support beam gives way with a sound like a tree snapping in a storm. Seyit Ali does not flinch. He's been here before. Not here exactly, but in places like this. In the Balkan Wars, when the world exploded around him and all you could do was keep moving, keep loading, keep fighting until either you died or the enemy did. He learned something in those wars, something that sets him apart from the younger men who tremble behind their sandbags. He learned that fear is just another sensation, like cold or hunger. You can acknowledge it and keep working. You can stare death in the face and still do your job. The Allied battleships advance in 3 lines. French ships in the vanguard, Suffren, Bouvet, Charlemagne, Gaulois. British ships behind, Queen Elizabeth, the most powerful battleship in the world, flanked by Agamemnon, Lord Nelson, inflexible. And supporting them, old workhorses from an earlier age, Irresistible, Ocean, Albion, Prince George. They come on like judgment itself, invincible, inevitable. Their guns flashing in sequence, a rolling thunder that never stops. The Turkish batteries fire back. their smaller guns spitting defiance at giants. Shells from the shore batteries strike home. The French Suffren takes hit after hit, her superstructure torn, men screaming as shrapnel scythes through flesh. But she keeps firing. They all keep firing. The Turks are outgunned, outnumbered, facing the combined might of two global empires. By every calculation, by every law of modern warfare, they should break. Their ammunition is running low. Their forts are crumbling. They've been bombarded for weeks. Logic says they cannot win. But logic doesn't account for the human heart. Logic doesn't measure what men will do when they're defending their homes. And logic certainly doesn't predict what will happen when a simple soldier named Seyit Ali is forced to make an impossible choice. The morning wears on. The bombardment intensifies. Inside Mecidiye Fort, Seyit Ali and his crew work their 240mm gun with mechanical precision, loading and firing, while the world burns around them. They've done this 1,000 times in training. Now they do it while the fort crumbles, while their friends die, while the air fills with smoke so thick you can barely see your hands in front of your face. At 2 p.m., everything changes. A shell from HMS Queen Elizabeth finds its mark. It strikes the fort's ammunition bunker with the force of a lightning bolt from an angry god. The explosion is apocalyptic. The ground heaves, the walls crack like eggshells. Fire blooms in a mushroom cloud of orange and black. And when the smoke clears, 14 of Seyit Ali's brothers in arms are dead. 24 more are wounded, screaming, bleeding, broken. Only Seyit Ali and his comrade, Nideli Ali, remain standing. Their gun is intact, operational, still loaded with one precious shell. But the mechanical crane that lifts the massive shells into the breach, 215 kilograms of forged steel and high explosive, is destroyed. Twisted metal. Useless. Outside, HMS Ocean and HMS Irresistible maneuver in Erenköy Bay, turning to bring their full broadsides to bear on the fort. If they're not stopped, if Mecidiye Fort falls silent, the British ships will systematically destroy what remains of the Turkish defenses. The Allied fleet will break through. Constantinople will fall. The war will be lost. Seyit Ali looks at the shell. He looks at the gun. He looks at the ships on the water below. And then he makes a decision that will echo through the ages. This is where our story truly begins, not with the thunder of the guns or the sinking of battleships, but with a single man facing an impossible task. Before we witness that moment, before we understand what it means to carry the weight of nations on your shoulders, we must go back to a small village in Anatolia, back to the beginning. Back to the boy who would become the titan of the Dardanelles. Chapter 2. Born from Anatolian earth. September 1889. The village of Manastır, in the Havran district of Western Anatolia. A child enters the world with a cry that pierces the night, announcing himself to a land that has seen empires rise and fall for 5,000 years. His name is Seyit Ali. His father is Abdurrahman. His mother is Emine. They are peasants, farmers, people of the earth who measure their wealth not in gold, but in surviving one more season, one more harvest, one more winter. They are Turkish, subjects of the Ottoman Empire, living in a time when that empire is no longer the terror of Europe, but a shadow of its former glory, sick and stumbling toward an uncertain future. The village of Manastır is not wealthy. It's not strategic. It's not the kind of place that appears on maps used by generals or diplomats. It's just a collection of houses clustered in the Anatolian countryside, where people wake before dawn to work the land and collapse into exhausted sleep when darkness falls. Life here is hard. It's always been hard. The soil is rocky. The winters are cold. The summers bake the earth until it cracks. But the people endure because they've always endured. Seyit Ali grows up knowing labor before he knows letters. At 5 years old, he's helping his father in the fields, small hands learning to grip a hoe, small back learning to bend and lift and carry. At 7, he's hauling water from the well, buckets that seem impossibly heavy, but which he carries anyway because someone must. At 9, he's working beside grown men, matching their pace, proving that strength isn't just about size, it's about will. His childhood is not filled with play or formal education. There is no time for such luxuries. The Ottoman Empire in the 1890s is struggling, And that struggle flows downward through every layer of society until it reaches the bottom, where people like Seyit Ali's family bear the weight of history on their shoulders. The empire is bankrupt, corruption is endemic, reform efforts sputter and fail, nationalism tears at the fabric of the multi-ethnic state. Young men are conscripted and never return. Taxes increase while services disappear. The future looks bleak. But Seyit Ali doesn't think about the future. He thinks about surviving today. He thinks about the next meal, the next task, the next season. He grows tall and broad, his body shaped by relentless physical labor into something formidable. By his teenage years, he can lift loads that require two ordinary men. He can work from sunrise to sunset without complaint. He has the quiet, unshakable strength of someone who has known hardship all his life and has learned that complaining changes nothing. He is not educated in the formal sense. He cannot read the poetry of Rumi or discuss philosophy. But he is intelligent in the way that matters for survival. He understands weather and seasons. He knows how to read the land, how to judge which timber will bear weight, which rope will hold, which tool will serve best for which task. He learns to fix things with whatever materials are at hand. He develops an instinct for mechanical systems, for understanding how pieces fit together, how forces distribute through structures. These skills seem humble, almost trivial, when compared to the grand education received by officers and officials in Constantinople. But these skills will save his life. More than that, they will help save an empire. In 1909, at 20 years old, Seyit Ali receives his conscription notice. The Ottoman army needs men. It always needs men. The Balkan provinces are restless. The empire faces threats from without and within. Young men like Seyit Ali are summoned to serve, to become soldiers, to defend a state that has given them little but demands everything. He reports to the recruitment office in Balıkesir. He stands in line with dozens of other young men from villages and towns across the region, all of them nervous, all of them unsure what military life will bring. The medical examination is cursory. Can you walk? Can you see? Can you lift this? Seyit Ali passes easily. His physical strength is immediately noted. The recruiting officers mark him down for artillery. Heavy guns need strong men. Strong backs to lift shells. Strong arms to handle loading. Seyit Ali has both. He is issued a uniform that doesn't quite fit, boots that are worn but functional, and a rifle that has seen better days. He is assigned to a training company. He learns to march, to salute, to follow orders without question. The transition from civilian to soldier is abrupt, disorienting. The army doesn't coddle, it doesn't explain, it commands, and you obey. But Seyit Ali adapts. He's always adapted. That's what poor men do. They adapt or they perish. The military discipline is harsh, but not incomprehensible. The physical demands are brutal, but not beyond his capabilities. He learns quickly. More importantly, he never complains, never shirks, never shows weakness. His officers notice. His fellow soldiers notice. Here is someone reliable. Someone who will do what needs to be done without drama or hesitation. He is sent to artillery school, where he learns the mechanical art of turning gunpowder and metal into destruction at a distance. He learns about elevation and trajectory, about fuses and propellant charges, about the delicate dance of mathematics and physics that turns a cannon into a precision instrument. He learns to work in a gun crew, where timing is everything, where every man must perform his role perfectly, or everyone dies. The training is intense. Accidents happen. Men are maimed by premature explosions, by incorrectly loaded shells, by pieces of equipment that fail under stress. Seyit Ali watches and learns. He develops a deep respect for the weapons he operates. These are not toys. These are engines of death that must be treated with reverence and caution. By 1912, Seyit Ali is a trained artillery gunner, a private in the Ottoman army, stationed with his regiment as tensions rise across the empire. He has been transformed from a village farmer into a soldier, but the core of who he is remains unchanged. He is still a man who understands labor, who knows how to endure, who doesn't break under pressure. He will need every bit of that resilience for what comes next. Chapter 3. Battleships in Fire. The Balkan Wars. October 8, 1912. The world as Seyit Ali knows it ends. Montenegro declares war on the Ottoman Empire. Within days, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece join the attack. The Balkan League, united for once in their shared hatred of Ottoman rule, launches a coordinated assault that catches the empire completely unprepared. The Ottoman army, already weakened by years of neglect and corruption, already divided by political factionalism, already demoralized by endless failures, crumbles, like a dam that has finally met a flood it cannot withstand. Seyit Ali and his artillery battery are deployed to the Macedonian front. They move by rail and foot, a long column of soldiers and equipment snaking through mountains and valleys, heading toward the sound of distant guns. The journey is chaos. Supplies fail to arrive. Orders contradict each other. Officers argue about strategy, while soldiers wait in the rain, uncertain whether they're advancing or retreating. When they reach the front, they discover that front is an optimistic word for what they find. The Ottoman defensive lines are porous, improvised, barely coherent. Communication between units is sporadic at best. The Balkan armies, better equipped, better trained, fueled by nationalist fervor, punch through Ottoman positions with shocking ease. Seyit Ali experiences modern war for the first time. It's nothing like training. Training had order, structure, predictability. War is madness. War is shells exploding at random, tearing men apart without warning or reason. War is watching your comrades vanish in clouds of red mist. War is the smell of blood and cordite and burning flesh, a smell that gets into your clothes and hair and skin, that you can taste at the back of your throat for days afterward. His battery tries to establish a defensive position on a ridge overlooking a river valley. They dig in, manhandle their guns into place, prepare fields of fire. For 2 days they wait, watching enemy forces mass on the opposite ridge. The tension is unbearable. Men joke nervously, check their equipment compulsively, smoke cigarette after cigarette. The attack comes at dawn. Bulgarian infantry surge forward in waves, their rifles cracking, their officers shouting encouragement. Seyit Ali's battery opens fire, their shells screaming across the valley to explode among the advancing troops. For a moment it seems to work. The first wave falters. Men fall. The Bulgarian advance slows, but there are so many of them. They keep coming. And behind them, Bulgarian artillery begins their counter-battery fire, seeking out the Ottoman guns. Shells bracket Seyit Ali's position. Closer. Closer. Then a direct hit on the gun next to his. The explosion is white-hot, a brief sun that burns away 3 men in an instant. When Seyit Ali can see again through the smoke, there's nothing left but a crater and pieces of metal that used to be a cannon. The battle rages for hours, then days. The Ottoman lines bend, crack, break. Retreat is ordered. Seyit Ali and the survivors of his battery limber their guns and pull back, abandoning positions they'd bled to defend, abandoning comrades whose bodies they don't have time to bury. The retreat becomes a rout. Units dissolve into panicked mobs. Officers lose control. Men throw away their weapons and run. Seyit Ali doesn't run. He stays with his gun, with his crew, moving back in good order, even as the world collapses around them. It's all he knows how to do. You don't abandon your post. You don't leave your comrades. You keep moving, keep working, keep fighting, until someone tells you to stop, or you're dead. The Balkan Wars are a catastrophe for the Ottoman Empire. In the space of months, the empire loses virtually all its European territories. Serbia takes Macedonia. Greece takes Thessaloniki. Bulgaria advances to within 30 kilometers of Constantinople itself before being stopped at the Çatalca defensive line. The ancient capital is saved, but barely. The empire has been humiliated, stripped of lands it had held for 5 centuries. Seyit Ali survives. Thousands don't. He witnesses horrors that will haunt him for years. He sees cities burned. He sees civilians fleeing with whatever they can carry. He sees the faces of defeated men who have given everything and lost everything. He learns what it means when empires fall, but he also learns something else. He learns that defeat doesn't have to mean destruction. The Ottoman army at Çatalca, outnumbered and outgunned, holds the line. They stop the Bulgarian advance through sheer determination, through refusing to break even when all logic says they should. Seyit Ali is part of that defense. He and his crew work their gun for days on end, firing until the barrel is too hot to touch, until they're so exhausted they can barely stand. But they keep firing, and the Bulgarians don't break through. An armistice is signed in December 1912. The fighting stops, at least temporarily. Seyit Ali and what's left of his battery are pulled back to Constantinople for rest and reorganization. The army is being rebuilt, reformed, whipped back into shape by German military advisors who bring Prussian discipline and modern tactics. Young officers who distinguish themselves in the desperate defense are promoted. New equipment arrives. The Ottoman army is learning from its failures. Seyit Ali is transferred to the Dardanelles fortifications. It's considered a quiet posting, a backwater assignment away from the main action. The Dardanelles, the narrow strait connecting the Mediterranean to the Black Sea, has been fortified for centuries. Ancient castles guard the narrowest point. Modern forts have been built on the hills overlooking the water. Artillery batteries cover every approach. It's one of the strongest defensive positions in the world. But it's also strategically vital. Whoever controls the Dardanelles controls access to Constantinople. Control Constantinople, and you control the Black Sea trade routes. The strait is a choke point, a natural bottleneck where even the mightiest fleet must pass through narrow waters under the guns of shore batteries. Seyit Ali arrives at Mecidiye Fort in early 1913. The fort sits on a hillside, on the European side of the strait, positioned to rain fire down on any ships attempting the passage. It's solidly built, with thick stone walls, underground ammunition bunkers, and purpose-built positions for heavy artillery. The guns themselves are German-made, 240mm naval rifles, massive weapons capable of hurling 215-kilogram shells more than 20 kilometers with deadly accuracy. Life at Mecidiye Fort is different from the chaos of the Balkan front. Here, there is routine, discipline, order. The days follow a pattern. Morning drills, maintenance, afternoon training, evening stand-down. The men clean their guns obsessively, keeping the mechanisms pristine, the barrels clear. Everything ready for action that may never come. They run practice drills, loading and firing imaginary shells at imaginary targets, until every movement becomes automatic, until the crew functions as a single organism. Seyit Ali thrives in this environment. He knows mechanical systems. He understands the gun as well as the officers who designed it. He can strip and reassemble the loading mechanism blindfolded. He knows exactly how much force each screw should be tightened, which parts are prone to failure, how to diagnose problems from sound and feel. The other soldiers in his crew come to rely on him. When something goes wrong, they call for Seyit Ali. He always fixes it. The months pass. The Ottoman Empire signs humiliating peace treaties, ceding vast territories. There's a brief, violent Second Balkan War, where former allies turn on each other, and the Ottomans manage to reclaim a sliver of lost ground. Then, in 1914, the real catastrophe begins. Archduke Franz Ferdinand is assassinated in Sarajevo. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Russia mobilizes to defend Serbia. Germany declares war on Russia and France. Britain declares war on Germany. The dominoes fall with terrifying speed. Within weeks, all of Europe is at war. The Ottoman Empire tries to remain neutral, but neutrality is not an option. Germany and Austria-Hungary, the Central Powers, court the Ottomans, offering support, modernization, respect. The Entente, Britain, France, and Russia, offer nothing but barely concealed contempt for the sick man of Europe. The choice, such as it is, becomes clear. In November 1914, the Ottoman Empire enters the war on the side of the Central Powers. Ottoman ships attack Russian ports in the Black Sea. Russia declares war. Britain and France, Russia's allies, follow suit. Suddenly, the quiet posting at the Dardanelles is no longer quiet. It's the front line. Seyit Ali and his comrades watch the horizon, waiting for the ships they know are coming. The British Mediterranean Fleet, the French Naval Squadron. Combined, they represent overwhelming force, enough firepower to level every fort on the strait, to silence every gun, to force a passage to Constantinople. But overwhelming force must still navigate the strait. It must still pass through the narrows. It must still come within range of the guns at Mecidiye Fort. And those guns are manned by soldiers who have already seen their empire nearly destroyed, who have already witnessed defeat and humiliation, who have already decided that some things are worth dying for. Seyit Ali doesn't think of himself as a hero. He doesn't think of himself as special. He's just a soldier, a peasant in a uniform, doing his job because that's what soldiers do. But sometimes, history doesn't care what you think of yourself. Sometimes history chooses ordinary men for extraordinary moments. And Seyit Ali's moment is coming. Chapter 4. The Guardian of the Straits. Winter 1915. The Dardanelles Strait becomes the center of the world. On paper, the plan is simple, even elegant. Britain's First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill, proposes a bold strategy to break the stalemate on the Western Front. Force the Dardanelles with naval power alone. Sail a fleet into the Sea of Marmara, threaten Constantinople directly. The Ottoman Empire will collapse. The Balkan states will join the Allies. A supply route will open to Russia through the Black Sea. The entire strategic calculus of the war will shift. It's ambitious. It's risky. It relies on the assumption that Ottoman defenses are as weak as Ottoman performance in the Balkan Wars suggested. But Churchill is confident. He has the ships. He has the guns. He has the might of two global empires at his disposal. What he doesn't have is a full understanding of what's waiting for him in those narrows. Mecidiye Fort, like all the fortifications along the Dardanelles, has been reinforced and improved under German supervision. The Ottoman military high command knows the strait will be attacked. They've spent months preparing. Additional mines have been laid across the narrowest sections, 370 mines in 10 separate lines, each mine a 200-kilogram canister of high explosives, waiting for a ship's hull to brush against its contact horns. Shore batteries have been upgraded. New guns have been installed. The old castle fortifications have been integrated with modern fire control systems. But more important than the hardware is the mindset of the defenders. These are not the same soldiers who broke in the Balkan Wars. Those defeats taught bitter lessons. The men now manning the forts have been hardened by failure, tempered by humiliation, forged into something more resilient than they were before. They know what it means to lose. They know what it costs when you don't hold the line. They've buried enough friends to understand that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing your duty when you're terrified. Seyit Ali is now part of a seasoned gun crew. His commander is a veteran officer, quiet and competent, the kind of leader who doesn't need to shout to maintain discipline. The other crew members are men Seyit Ali has served with for years. Nideli Ali, his loader, is from central Anatolia, a man with steady hands and a dry sense of humor that keeps morale up during the long watches. There's Mehmet, the fuse setter, who can calculate trajectory adjustments in his head faster than most men can do them on paper. There's Hassan, who handles the breech mechanism with the precision of a watchmaker. They train constantly. Every day they run through the loading sequence, Remove the spent shell casing, swab the barrel. Load the new shell with the mechanical crane. Close the breech, set the fuse. Load the powder charge. Aim. Fire. The rhythm becomes second nature. They can complete the cycle in under 2 minutes when everything works perfectly. They've practiced so many times that each man knows exactly where the others will be at every moment, can anticipate movements, can compensate when someone is slow or uncertain. The gun itself is a marvel of engineering. The 240mm naval rifle is mounted on a massive concrete emplacement, designed to absorb recoil. The barrel is nearly 6 meters long, rifled with precision grooves that spin the shell as it exits, stabilizing its flight. The breech mechanism is complex but robust, a German design that can withstand the enormous pressures generated when the propellant charges ignite. The shells are stored in the underground magazine, carefully organized by type. High explosive for anti-ship work, armor-piercing for the thickest targets. Each shell weighs 215 kilograms. That's the weight of 3 grown men. The shells are cylindrical, about as long as a man's torso, made of forged steel casing packed with explosives. Handling them requires the mechanical crane, a hydraulic system that lifts the shell from its storage rack, swings it into position behind the gun, and pushes it into the barrel. No human could lift such weight. The crane makes it possible. Or so everyone assumes. February 19th, 1915. The bombardment begins. British and French battleships appear at the entrance to the Dardanelles and open fire on the outer forts. The sound of naval guns is different from land artillery, deeper, more resonant, a bass rumble that seems to come from the earth itself. The Allied ships stay at long range, lobbing shells at maximum elevation, trying to suppress the Ottoman batteries without getting close enough to be hit in return. The Ottoman gunners respond. Coastal artillery duels with warships, a strange, slow-motion dance where each side tries to find the range, adjust for wind and distance, score hits before taking too many in return. The British and French have advantages: more guns, heavier armor, better fire control systems. But the Turks have the advantage of position. They're shooting from fixed emplacements with precise range cards. They know every meter of the strait. They can predict where the ships will go because there's only so much maneuvering room in the narrow waters. The bombardment continues sporadically for weeks. The Allies probe the defenses, testing reactions, trying to identify the locations of hidden batteries. The Ottomans conserve ammunition, firing only when they have clear targets, refusing to reveal all their positions. It's a game of chess played with guns and blood. At Mecidiye Fort, Seyit Ali and his crew stand ready. Their gun is positioned to cover a specific sector of the strait, the approach to the narrows where the waterway squeezes down to little more than a kilometer wide. Any ship trying to force passage must come within their range. When that happens, they'll be ready. The waiting is hard. Days blend together. The tension never releases. You can't relax when you know that at any moment the alarm might sound, that you might have minutes to reach your gun before enemy ships appear. The men smoke too much, eat too little, sleep in brief fitches. Rumors spread through the fort like wildfire. The British are coming with 50 ships, with 100 ships, with the entire Grand Fleet. The forts are running out of ammunition. The guns are wearing out. Reinforcements are coming. No reinforcements are coming. Constantinople has fallen. The war is over. The war is just beginning. Seyit Ali ignores the rumors. He focuses on what he can control. He checks his gun. He drills with his crew. He makes sure everything is perfect, that every mechanism functions smoothly, that every tool is in its place. When the moment comes, and he knows it will come, there won't be time to fumble, to hesitate, to discover that something isn't ready. On the night of March 8th, something changes. The mine-layer Nusret, a small Ottoman vessel, slips out of port under cover of darkness. Her captain, Lieutenant Haki Bey, has been given a special mission. The Turkish observers have noticed a pattern. When the Allied battleships finish their bombardments, they turn around in Erenköy Bay on the Asian shore, before heading back out to open water. The bay appears safe because it's outside the known minefield zones. The British and French captains use it without concern. Lieutenant Haki Bey is going to change that. Under the supervision of German naval engineers, the Nusret lays 26 mines in a single line parallel to the shore in Erenköy Bay. Each mine is connected to a mooring cable that keeps it 5 meters below the surface, deep enough to be invisible from the surface, shallow enough to strike a warship's hull. The operation takes hours. It's done in complete silence. Not a single light shows aboard the Nusret. When dawn breaks, she's back in port, and the deadly trap has been set. The Allied commanders don't know. The minesweepers haven't swept Erenköy Bay because everyone assumed it was safe. The trap is perfect because it's unexpected. 10 days later, on March 18th, the full weight of the Allied fleet comes knocking at the door. At dawn, Seyit Ali stands at his post, watching the horizon lighten from black to grey to pale blue. The morning is cold. Breath steams in the air. The strait is calm. The water smooth as glass. It won't stay that way for long. At 10:30 a.m., the first warships appear, then more and more. 18 capital ships, the largest concentration of naval power in one place since the Battle of Trafalgar a century before. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the most modern and powerful battleship in the world. Her 8 15-inch guns capable of punching through any armor ever made. HMS Inflexible, Agamemnon, Lord Nelson. Names from history, from glory, from an empire that rules a quarter of the globe. And with them, French battleships. Suffren, Bouvet, Charlemagne, Gaulois. Each one a steel leviathan bearing the tricolour. They advance in formation, majestic and terrible, their guns elevated, ready to fire. The message is clear: overwhelming force. Submit or be destroyed. At Mecidiye Fort, the alarm sounds. Men sprint to their positions. Seyit Ali reaches his gun in seconds, his crew already assembling around him like a well-oiled machine. The commander gives rapid orders. Load high explosive. Set range to 12,000 meters. Prepare to fire on command. The mechanical crane whirs to life. It lifts a shell from the magazine, swings it to the gun, rams it home. The breech closes with a satisfying clang. The fuse is set. The powder charge loaded. Everything ready. Across the strait, in every fort, every battery, every bunker, Turkish soldiers do the same. They face impossible odds. But they're not thinking about odds. They're thinking about their homes, their families, their country. They're thinking about standing here, on this ground, and not moving. The Allied fleet draws closer. Their guns flash. The bombardment begins. And so begins the longest day of Seyit Ali's life. The day that will transform him from a simple soldier into a legend. The day when an ordinary man will do something extraordinary. The day that will change the course of history. Chapter 5. The Allied Plan. Churchill's Gambit. 6,000 kilometers away from the Dardanelles, in the gilded halls of power in London, Winston Churchill stares at a map of Europe and sees checkmate. It's December 1914. The war that everyone predicted would be over by Christmas shows no sign of ending. On the Western Front, British and German soldiers stare at each other across a wasteland of mud, barbed wire, and corpses. The armies are locked in a brutal stalemate. Attacks gain meters at the cost of thousands of lives. The generals throw men into machine gun fire and call it strategy. The war has devolved into a grinding horror of attrition, where the only question is which side runs out of soldiers first. Churchill, brilliant and ambitious, sees an alternative. Why batter yourself against impregnable trenches when you can use Britain's greatest asset, her navy, to strike where the enemy is weak? The Ottoman Empire has entered the war on Germany's side. This opens new possibilities. The Dardanelles Strait offers a narrow passage to Constantinople. Force that strait, the reasoning goes, and the Ottoman Empire collapses. More importantly, a route opens to Russia through the Black Sea. Supplies can flow in, Russian grain can flow out. The Eastern Front stabilizes. Germany faces a true two-front war. It's an elegant solution on paper. It requires no massive land army, no years of preparation, just ships and determination. Britain has both. Churchill assembles an impressive force. 18 battleships form the core. HMS Queen Elizabeth, fresh from the shipyard, mounting guns that can strike targets 20 kilometers away. The older battlecruisers, Inflexible, Irresistible, and Ocean, veterans of earlier conflicts, still potent. 4 French battleships add to the firepower. Cruisers, destroyers, minesweepers, a complete fleet. Enough naval power to erase a city. The plan develops in stages. First, a naval bombardment will silence the Ottoman forts at the entrance to the strait. This begins on February 19th. British and French ships pummel the outer defenses for hours. Some forts are damaged, others fall silent. Early reports suggest success, but appearances deceive. The Ottoman batteries have learned to play dead, to stop shooting when hit, to wait for the Allied ships to move on, then to resume firing. The Turks are conserving ammunition, waiting for the right moment. And the forts, while damaged, are not destroyed. Stone and concrete can absorb tremendous punishment. The guns can be repaired, the crews replaced. Still, the initial attacks create optimism. Admiral Sackville-Carden, commanding the Mediterranean squadron, believes the strait can be forced. He draws up an ambitious plan for March 18th, a full-scale assault with the entire fleet, aiming to suppress all batteries, sweep the mines, and push through to the Sea of Marmara in a single day. The British War Council approves. The French agree to participate. Preparations accelerate. Ships gather at the Greek island of Lemnos. Crews drill. Officers study charts of the strait. Everyone is confident. The Ottoman Empire is the sick man of Europe, after all. Its army was humiliated in the Balkan Wars. Its forts are obsolete. Its soldiers are poorly trained and badly equipped. How can they possibly stand against the combined might of the British and French navies? This confidence is not entirely unjustified. The Allies do have overwhelming advantages. Their ships are more modern, better armored, more heavily armed. Their crews are professional sailors from nations with centuries of naval tradition. They have spotting aircraft to direct fire. They have better communications, better range-finding equipment, better everything by almost every measure. But wars are not won on paper, and the Ottomans, whatever their shortcomings, are defending their homeland. They know the terrain. They've had weeks to prepare, and they've had help from an unlikely source. Germany, recognizing the strategic importance of keeping the Dardanelles closed, has sent military advisors, equipment, and expertise. German engineers have helped improve the forts. German naval officers have planned the minefield layouts. German gunnery instructors have trained the Turkish artillery crews. The defenses of the Dardanelles are no longer purely Ottoman. They're a hybrid system, combining Ottoman determination with German technical skill. And then there's the secret weapon, the Nusret. The Nusret is not impressive to look at. She's a small mine layer, barely 360 tons, designed for coastal work. But in the hands of Lieutenant Haki Bey, she becomes something more. On the night of March 8th, she slips undetected into Erenköy Bay and lays her deadly cargo. The mines are German-made carbonite spheres, each containing 200 kilograms of explosives. They're moored just below the surface, invisible to observation, positioned exactly where Allied ships turn around after their bombardment runs. It's a brilliant trap. The Allies sweep the known minefields, but they don't sweep Erenköy Bay because they don't know it's mined. The Turkish and German officers who planned this operation understand human psychology. People assume areas they've used safely before remain safe. That assumption will be fatal. March 18th dawns clear and calm. Perfect conditions for naval operations. In the Allied headquarters on HMS Queen Elizabeth, the atmosphere is one of confidence bordering on certainty. Today is the day. Today the strait falls. By evening they'll be sailing toward Constantinople. The war in the east will be effectively over. At 11 a.m., the attack begins. The Allied fleet advances in 3 lines. The French take the lead, their battleships steaming into the strait in line ahead, guns trained on the shore batteries. Behind them, the British ships follow, a parade of steel titans moving with ponderous grace. The destroyers dart ahead, screening against potential torpedo attacks. The minesweepers prepare to clear channels once the guns have suppressed the defenses. The Ottoman batteries hold their fire, waiting for the ships to come within effective range. Let them come closer. Let them commit. When they're too close to turn back easily, then open fire. At 11:50 a.m., the Turkish gunners receive their orders. Open fire. The shore batteries erupt. Every fort, every redoubt, every hidden position along 40 kilometers of coast opens up simultaneously. Hundreds of guns, from massive 240mm naval rifles down to quick-firing field pieces, pour shells at the Allied fleet. The surprise is complete. The Allies expected resistance, but not this level of coordination, not this volume of fire. HMS Queen Elizabeth returns fire with her massive 15-inch guns, each shell screaming through the air to detonate among the shore batteries with tremendous force. Other ships follow suit. The strait fills with smoke and thunder. This is modern war at its most intense. Dozens of ships and hundreds of guns all firing at once, shells crossing in the air, explosions blossoming along the shore and in the water, the noise beyond human comprehension. The French battleship Suffren takes multiple hits. Shells tear through her superstructure. Men die in showers of white-hot shrapnel. But she keeps firing, keeps advancing, her crew working their guns with mechanical determination, even as their ship bleeds. On the Asian shore, the forts at Kumkale and Orhaniye concentrate their fire on the French ships. On the European side, Mecidiye Fort and the batteries at Kilit Bahir engage the British. The Turkish gunners are surprisingly accurate. They've practiced on these ranges for months. They know the distances, the wind patterns, the currents. Their shots find targets. HMS Inflexible is struck by a heavy shell that penetrates her deck armor and explodes in a casemate, killing 30 men instantly. She returns fire, her guns demolishing a section of Turkish fortification, but she's badly shaken. For hours, the battle rages. The Allies push deeper into the strait, their maneuvering becoming more restricted as the waters narrow. The Turkish fire intensifies. Ships are hit repeatedly. Damage mounts. But the Allied commanders remain confident. They're wearing down the defenders. It's only a matter of time. What they don't know is that time is running out in a different sense. The minefield in Erenköy Bay is waiting, and the Allied ships are maneuvering exactly as predicted. At 1:54 p.m., as the French battleship Bouvet turns in Erenköy Bay to give her undamaged broadside a clear field of fire, her hull strikes one of Lieutenant Haki Bey's mines. The explosion is catastrophic. The mine detonates against the ship's hull plating, tearing a massive hole below the waterline. Water floods in with enormous force. The Bouvet lists immediately, her keel breached, her compartments flooding faster than her pumps can handle. Within minutes, she's tilting at an impossible angle. Men scramble across her decks, trying to reach lifeboats, trying to jump clear before she capsizes. They don't have time. 2 minutes after hitting the mine, Bouvet rolls over completely and sinks. 639 men go down with her. Only 48 survive. The sinking of Bouvet shocks the Allied commanders. One of their capital ships has just been destroyed in seconds. But they don't immediately understand what happened. Was it a mine? A torpedo? A lucky shot from shore batteries? The confusion is compounded by the chaos of battle, by smoke obscuring visibility, by the sheer noise making communication difficult. The attack continues. The battleships push forward, still determined to force the strait. HMS Irresistible and HMS Ocean maneuver to provide covering fire for minesweepers attempting to clear the way forward. They enter Erenköy Bay, turning through the same waters where Bouvet sank. Both ships strike mines within minutes of each other. HMS Irresistible takes massive damage, her engines disabled, her steering gone. She begins to list and drift, helpless, still under fire from shore batteries. HMS Ocean attempts to take her in tow, but is herself struck by a mine. Badly damaged, flooding, Both ships are abandoned, as their crews are rescued by destroyers. By evening, the Allied fleet withdraws. 3 battleships lost in one day, 3 more badly damaged, hundreds of casualties, and they haven't even cleared the minefields or suppressed the shore batteries. The attempt to force the Dardanelles by naval power alone has failed, decisively and expensively. Vice Admiral de Robeck, who took command when Carden suffered a nervous breakdown, makes the decision to cool off the naval assault. The fleet will not try again. If the Dardanelles are to be forced, it will require an amphibious landing, an invasion of the Gallipoli Peninsula to capture the forts from land. That will take months to organize, giving the Ottomans time to reinforce. Churchill's elegant plan has collapsed. The quick victory has become an extended campaign, and in London, political consequences begin to mount. Churchill's critics, and he has many, will use this failure against him. His career will never fully recover. But all of that is yet to come. On March 18th, as the sun sets over the Dardanelles, the reality is simple. The Ottomans have won. Against overwhelming odds, against the combined naval might of 2 empires, the defenders of the strait have held. The fleet has been turned back. Constantinople is safe, at least for now. And at Mecidiye Fort, a soldier named Seyit Ali is about to become immortal. Chapter 6. March 18th, 1915, Morning of Destiny. The sun rises bloody over the Dardanelles, painting the water crimson and gold. It's 6 a.m. The fort is already awake, has been awake for hours. Soldiers moving through pre-battle routines, with the mechanical efficiency of men who know that soon they may be dead. Seyit Ali eats breakfast without tasting it. Hard bread, cheese, tea so strong it could strip paint. His stomach is tight with anticipation, but he forces himself to eat anyway. You need strength for what's coming. You need fuel in your body, because you don't know when you'll eat again, if you'll eat again. Around him, other soldiers go through similar motions. Some write letters home, knowing they may never send them. Others pray, kneeling on rough blankets, foreheads touching the ground, lips moving silently. A few stand at the battlements, smoking, watching the horizon where they know the fleet will appear. No one sleeps. Sleep is impossible. The waiting is almost worse than combat. At 7 a.m., officers conduct final inspections. They check ammunition stores, confirm communication lines, verify that every gun is ready. The fort's commander, a colonel who has served in these positions for years, walks among the men with words of encouragement. "Remember what we're defending," he says. "Remember who we are. When those ships come, they expect us to break. We will not break. We will not run. We will stand here until we win or until we die." The men nod. They've heard speeches before, but this one feels different. This one feels true. At 8:30 a.m., lookouts report movement on the horizon. Ships, many ships, the entire Allied fleet, steaming toward the strait in formation. The call to battle stations sounds throughout the fort. Men sprint to their guns. Seyit Ali reaches his position in seconds, his crew already assembling. They've done this so many times in drills that no orders are needed. Everyone knows their role. The mechanical crane is tested one last time. It lifts a shell from the rack, swings it smoothly to the loading position, then returns it. Perfect. The hydraulics are functioning properly. The gears are greased. Everything works as it should. "Load!" the gun commander orders. The crane lifts a 215-kilogram shell, rams it into the breech. The mechanism closes. Fuse set. Powder charge loaded. The gun is ready. "Stand by," comes the command. They wait. The ships are still distant, still beyond effective range. The Turkish strategy is to hold fire until the fleet commits, until they're deep enough into the strait that withdrawal becomes difficult. Let them think the defenses are weak. Let them come closer. At 11 a.m., the first Allied shells scream overhead. They're ranging shots, testing the defenses, trying to provoke return fire that will reveal gun positions. The Turkish batteries stay silent. A shell impacts 50 meters from Mecidiye Fort, throwing up a geyser of dirt and rock. Another hits closer. The ground shakes. Dust rains down from the ceiling of the gun emplacement. Still, the order is, hold your fire. The tension is unbearable. Every instinct screams to shoot back, to do something rather than sit here and be shelled. But discipline holds. The men have been trained for this. They trust their officers. They wait. At 11:50 a.m., the order finally comes. Open fire! Every Turkish battery along the strait opens up simultaneously. The coordination is perfect. Hundreds of guns, firing in orchestrated volleys, catching the Allied fleet in a storm of steel. Seyit Ali's crew works with practiced precision. Load. Fire. The gun roars, recoiling violently on its mounts, then sliding back into battery. The shell arcs through the air. 6 seconds of flight time, then impact. A tower of water erupts next to HMS Lord Nelson. Close, very close. Just left 2 degrees, the commander says calmly. Fire when ready. They load again. Fire again. This time the shell hits, striking the British battleship's superstructure. Smoke and flame. A direct hit. For hours the gun duel continues. Seyit Ali and his crew work until their muscles burn, until sweat soaks their uniforms, until their ears ring so badly from the concussions that they can barely hear commands. But they don't stop. Load, fire, load, fire, the rhythm becoming almost meditative in its repetition. The fort takes hits, many hits. A shell smashes through the outer wall, collapsing a section of parapet, burying 3 men in rubble. Another shell strikes a nearby ammunition dump, the explosion so powerful it lifts men off their feet. The fort shudders with each impact like a wounded animal. But Seyit Ali's gun keeps firing. The crew is intact. The weapon is functional. That's all that matters. At 1:54 p.m., a massive explosion echoes across the water. One of the French battleships, they'll learn later it was the Bouvet, has struck a mine and capsized in minutes. Even from the fort, miles away, they can see the ship's hull rolling over. Men jumping from the deck, boats trying to reach survivors. It's a catastrophic loss. One of the most powerful warships in the world, gone in seconds. The Allied fleet falters. Ships that were pressing forward begin to maneuver more cautiously. But the bombardment continues. The forts are still the targets. Shells rain down relentlessly. At 2 p.m., everything changes at Mecidiye Fort. A shell from HMS Queen Elizabeth, a massive 15-inch projectile weighing 871 kilograms, hits the fort's ammunition bunker with the precision of divine judgment. The impact alone is tremendous, punching through meters of reinforced concrete. But when the shell explodes among the stored ammunition, the resulting detonation is apocalyptic. The ammunition bunker contains hundreds of shells, thousands of powder charges, everything needed to keep the fort's guns firing for days. When that explodes all at once, the energy released is comparable to a small earthquake. The explosion is white-hot, a miniature sun that burns away oxygen, that turns metal to vapor, that kills instantly and completely. Seyit Ali is at his gun position, 30 meters from the bunker. When the explosion hits, the shockwave picks him up and throws him against the wall like a rag doll. His ears explode with pain. His vision goes white. For a moment he thinks he's dead, that this is what death feels like, noise and light and weightlessness. Then gravity reasserts itself. He falls, hits the ground hard, lies there, dazed, trying to breathe through lungs that have had all the air hammered out of them. Dust chokes him. He can't see, can't hear, can't think. Gradually, awareness returns. He's alive. Impossibly, he's alive. He tries to stand, fails, tries again, manages to get to his knees. His ears are ringing so badly that all other sound is distant, muffled, like he's underwater. Through the dust and smoke he sees shapes moving, other soldiers. Some are screaming, though he can barely hear them. Others lie still. The ammunition bunker is gone, just gone. Where there was a reinforced structure, now there's a crater, still smoking, edges glowing red from the heat. Bodies lie scattered around it, torn and broken. Some are recognizable, others aren't. Seyit Ali counts quickly. 14 men dead, 24 wounded. The fort's combat strength has been cut in half in a single moment. He looks for his crew. Seyit Ali is there, covered in dust but alive, helping another soldier to his feet. Relief floods through Seyit Ali. His friends survived. They both survived. But others? He sees the gun commander lying motionless, his chest crushed by falling debris. He sees Mehmet, the fuse setter, clutching what's left of his arm, blood pumping between his fingers. He sees Hassan, silent and still, staring at nothing. The fort is in chaos. Men are trying to tend to the wounded, trying to clear rubble, trying to figure out what's still functional. And all the while, the Allied bombardment continues. Shells still fall. The battle isn't over. The battle will never be over until they're all dead or the ships retreat. Seyit Ali stands, forces himself to think through the shock. His gun. Is his gun still operational? He staggers over to his position, checking the weapon, running his hands over the breech mechanism, looking for damage. The gun appears intact. The mounting is solid. The barrel is clear. But when he looks at the mechanical crane, his heart sinks. The crane is destroyed. Twisted metal. Broken hydraulics. The explosion has wrecked the mechanism that lifts the shells into the breech. Without the crane, the gun is useless. You can't load 215-kilogram shells by hand. It's impossible. The gun might as well be a statue for all the good it can do. Seyit Ali appears beside him, also checking the gun, also seeing the problem. They exchange glances. No words are needed. They both understand what this means. Down in the strait, HMS Ocean and HMS Irresistible are maneuvering into position. They're bringing their full broadsides to bear on Mecidiye Fort, preparing to systematically destroy what remains of the defenses. If they're not stopped, if the fort falls silent, the Allied ships will have clear sailing through this section of the strait. The Turkish defensive line will break. The fleet will get through. Seyit Ali looks at the gun. He looks at the ships. He looks at the shells stacked in the magazine. Perfectly good ammunition that can't be fired because there's no way to lift them into the gun. And that's when he makes his decision. It's not a heroic decision. Not in his mind. It's just practical problem solving. The same kind of thinking he's done all his life when machinery breaks and improvisation is the only option. The crane is broken. The shells are too heavy for normal men to lift. But he's not a normal man. He's spent his entire life doing hard physical labor. He's lifted loads that required 2 or 3 ordinary men. He knows his body, knows its limits, knows what he can do when he has to. "Get a shell," he tells Seyit Ali. "Bring it here." Seyit Ali stares at him. "What? Bring a shell. I'll load it." "Seyit, it weighs—" "I know what it weighs," Seyit Ali interrupts. "Bring it." Seyit Ali opens his mouth to argue, then sees the expression on Seyit Ali's face. There's no point arguing. Seyit Ali has decided. Seyit Ali has served with him long enough to know that when Seyit Ali decides something, you don't waste time debating. You help or you get out of the way. Together, they go to the magazine. The shells are stored vertically in racks, each one nestled into its position, secured against movement. They select one, a high-explosive shell, its nose fuse carefully set for the proper range. Getting it out of the rack takes both of them, plus another soldier who's watching, confused by what they're doing. Once the shell is free of the rack, Seyit Ali crouches down, gets his arms around the base of the cylindrical projectile. Cold steel against his skin. 215 kilograms of weight. The physics are cruel. This is more than 3 times what a strongman can typically lift overhead. More than twice what professional strongmen in competitions can manage. But Seyit Ali isn't trying to lift it overhead. He's trying to lift it onto his back, to carry it like he's carried timbers in the forest, like he's carried sacks of grain from the warehouse, like he's carried every impossible load his life has demanded of him. He takes a breath, plants his feet, engages his legs, his back, his core, everything working together. And he lifts. The shell rises, not easily, not smoothly. His body screams in protest. Muscles that have been worked hard for hours, that are already exhausted, suddenly have to handle a load they were never designed for. His legs shake, his back curves under the weight. For a moment, he thinks he can't do it, that he's going to drop the shell, that his body will simply give out, but he doesn't drop it. He straightens, inch by agonizing inch, until the shell is balanced on his shoulders and upper back. The weight is crushing. He can feel his spine compressing, his shoulder joints grinding. Blood vessels burst in his nose from the pressure, hot blood running down his face. His vision narrows, darkens at the edges. But he's standing. He's holding it, and then he walks. 30 meters from the magazine to the gun. It might as well be 30 kilometers. Every step is agony. The shell wants to tip, to fall, to crash to the ground and take him with it. He has to compensate constantly, adjusting his balance, fighting against gravity and exhaustion, and the screaming protest of every muscle and tendon in his body. Seyit Ali walks beside him, hands out, ready to help if Seyit Ali starts to fall. But there's not much he can do. This is Seyit Ali's burden, his alone. All Seyit Ali can do is watch and pray. They reach the gun. Seyit Ali, with the last reserves of his strength, pivots and positions himself behind the breech. The shell needs to go into the barrel at exactly the right angle. Any mistake, and it will jam, or worse, damage the rifling. He has one chance to get this right. He lifts. The shell rises from his shoulders. He guides it with his hands, his arms shaking so badly he's not sure he can maintain control. The nose of the shell enters the breech. He pushes, using his body weight now, driving the projectile into the barrel. It slides home. Perfect. Seyit Ali collapses. He literally falls to his knees, his body giving out now that the immediate task is complete. Blood pours from his nose, drips onto the concrete floor. He's gasping, his lungs burning, his heart hammering so hard he can feel it in his skull. For a moment, he thinks he might die here, that his heart will simply give out from the strain. But he doesn't die. He breathes, in and out, in and out. And gradually, the world stops spinning. Around him, the rest of the crew springs into action. The breech closes, the fuse is confirmed, the powder charge is loaded, the gun is ready to fire. Target? The acting gun commander asks, his voice shaking. Seyit Ali points at HMS Ocean, maneuvering in Erinköy Bay. The British battleship is turning, her broadside about to come to bear on the fort. She's close now, well within range, a perfect target. Fire, he says. The gun roars.
Chapter 7. The moment catalogue changed history. The shell leaves the barrel at 850 meters per second, its spiral rifling making it spin, stabilizing its flight. It arcs through the air in a trajectory calculated by years of training and mathematics, rising, then falling. 6 seconds of flight. 6 seconds during which the entire battle holds its breath. The shell strikes HMS Ocean amidships, below the waterline. The impact is tremendous. The armor-piercing shell punches through the ship's hull plating before its fuse detonates, the explosion tearing apart interior compartments, rupturing steam lines, flooding engineering spaces. The ship shudders from stem to stern. Alarms sound. Men run. Damage control parties race to seal breaches, to fight fires, to keep the ship afloat. But the damage is catastrophic. The hit has torn a massive hole in the ship's side, well below the waterline. Water pours in faster than pumps can handle. The ship lists. Her steering is damaged. Her engines are losing pressure. She's crippled. And she's drifting into the minefield. At Mecidiye Fort, Seyit Ali doesn't know yet that his shell has found its mark. He's still on his knees, still recovering, blood still running from his nose. But Seyit Ali has grabbed him by the shoulders, is shouting something, and slowly Seyit Ali's hearing returns enough to understand. "You hit her! You hit her! There's no time to celebrate." Seyit Ali forces himself to stand. His legs barely support him. His entire body feels like it's been beaten with clubs. But the gun is still operational. There are more shells, and there are more ships. "Again," he says. Seyit Ali stares at him. "Say it, you can't." "Again," Seyit Ali repeats. "Get me another shell." What follows is almost beyond belief. Seyit Ali, already pushed beyond any reasonable human limit, goes back to the magazine. He lifts another 215-kilogram shell. He carries it to the gun. He loads it. The crew fires. And then he does it again, a third time. 3 shells, each one carried by hand by a single man, each one fired at the Allied fleet, each one contributing to the defense of the strait. The third shell hits HMS Irresistible, already damaged by mines, already listing and helpless. The impact doesn't sink her immediately, but it hastens her end. Between the mine damage and the artillery hits, the British battleship is doomed. Her crew will have to abandon ship within hours. By the time Seyit Ali has carried and loaded the third shell, he's reached the absolute limits of human endurance. He collapses again, and this time he doesn't get back up. His body has given everything it has. He lies on the concrete floor, barely conscious, while his crew works around him, while the battle continues, while history unfolds. Other Turkish batteries join in the defense. All along the strait, artillery crews fire at the damaged British ships. The coordination is perfect. The Allies are caught in crossfire from multiple positions. Their return fire becomes ragged, disorganized. Ships that should be pressing the attack are instead maneuvering defensively, trying to avoid mines, trying to escape the killing zone. HMS Ocean, crippled by Seyit Ali's shell, drifts into the minefield that the Nusret laid 10 days earlier. Her hull strikes a mine. The explosion tears open her already damaged side. She begins to sink. Destroyers race to rescue her crew. Most escape, but the ship itself is finished. By nightfall, she'll rest on the bottom of the Dardanelles, another victim of Ottoman determination and German mines. The battle continues through the afternoon, but the momentum has shifted. The Allied attack, which began with such confidence, has turned into a fighting retreat. HMS Inflexible is badly damaged, barely able to make way. French battleships Suffren and Gaulois are both crippled. The minesweepers, critical for clearing a path through the Turkish mines, have taken such heavy fire that their civilian crews refuse to continue. Without cleared channels, the battleships can't advance without risking more mine strikes. By 5 p.m., Vice Admiral de Robeck has seen enough. 3 battleships lost, 3 more badly damaged. The defenses are clearly stronger than intelligence suggested. The operation is not working. He orders the fleet to withdraw. The Allied warships turn around and steam back out of the strait, their guns still firing, still engaging the Turkish batteries, but now retreating rather than advancing. They've thrown everything they have at the Dardanelles defenses and failed to break through. At Mecidiye Fort, as the sound of naval guns fades into the distance, soldiers slowly emerge from their positions. They look around at the devastation. The fort has been hit dozens of times. Entire sections of wall have collapsed. There are craters everywhere. Dead and wounded lie scattered across the position. The smell of blood and explosives hangs heavy in the air. But the fort still stands. The guns are still operational. The Turkish flag still flies from the highest point. They held. Against the most powerful navies in the world, they held the line. Someone helps Seyit Ali to his feet. He can barely stand. His face is covered in dried blood. His uniform is soaked with sweat and filth. He looks like he's been through hell, which is accurate. But he's alive. And more than that,
He's victorious. The fort's commander, who witnessed Seyit Ali's impossible feat, comes to him personally. Soldiers part to let the colonel through. He stands before Seyit Ali, studying him with an expression that mixes awe and disbelief. "What you did today," the commander says quietly, "saved this fort, saved our position, maybe saved Constantinople itself." Seyit Ali doesn't know what to say. He didn't do it for glory. He did it because it needed to be done, because the gun had to be fired, because someone had to do it, and he was the one capable of doing it. "You're promoted to corporal, effective immediately," the commander continues, "and you'll be put forward for the Gallipoli Star, the highest decoration we can award. What you did today." He pauses, searching for words. "Men will sing songs about this. Your name will be remembered." Seyit Ali, now Corporal Seyit, just nods. He's too exhausted for speeches. All he wants is water and a place to lie down. The commander seems to understand. He nods to Nideli Ali, who helps Seyit Ali away from the gun position, away from the carnage, to a quiet corner where he can finally rest. As Seyit Ali lies down, his body screaming in pain, his mind struggling to process what just happened, he hears the other soldiers talking. Their voices are filled with excitement, with relief, with triumph. They're already turning the day's events into legend. "Did you see what Seyit Ali did? He carried the shells by himself. 3 shells. Each one weighs as much as 3 men." The story is already growing, already taking on mythic proportions. And Seyit Ali, exhausted beyond measure, lets it happen. He closes his eyes and drifts into unconsciousness, his work done, his place in history secured. Sagiv 10.
Chapter 8. The tide turns. Night falls over the Dardanelles. The Allied fleet limps back to the Greek island of Lemnos, licking its wounds, counting its losses. 3 battleships sunk. Bouvet, Irresistible, Ocean. 3 more severely damaged. Inflexible, Gaulois, Suffren. Nearly 700 men dead. The simple naval operation has become a disaster. In the Allied headquarters, recriminations begin immediately. Who underestimated the Turkish defenses? Why weren't the minefields properly cleared? How did they lose 3 capital ships in a single afternoon? The finger-pointing is intense. Careers will be destroyed over this. Winston Churchill, whose brilliant idea this was, will resign from the Admiralty within months, his political standing shattered. But all of that is politics, distant and abstract. On the water, the reality is simpler. The fleet cannot force the Dardanelles. The naval operation is finished. If the Allies want to reach Constantinople, they'll have to land troops on the Gallipoli Peninsula, capture the forts from behind, and clear the straits the hard way. That will take months to organize. And it will be far, far bloodier than anyone imagines. For the Ottoman defenders, the night of March 18th is one of exhausted celebration. They've won. Against overwhelming odds, against the most powerful navies in the world, they've held the strait. Constantinople is safe. Turkey remains in the war. The Allied strategy has failed. At Mecidiye Fort, medics work through the night tending to the wounded. 14 men are dead, their bodies wrapped in blankets, waiting for burial. 24 more are wounded, some severely. The fort itself is a wreck, but it's still functional. The guns can be repaired. The walls can be rebuilt. They held today, and they'll hold tomorrow if the Allies come back. Corporal Seyit Ali sleeps through most of the night, his body demanding recovery after being pushed so far beyond its limits. When he finally wakes, it's to discover that he can barely move. Every muscle hurts. His back feels like someone has driven nails through his spine. His shoulders are swollen, bruised black and purple from the crushing weight of the shells. His nose is packed with bandages where blood vessels burst from the strain. But he's alive. And he's famous. Word of his feat has spread through the Ottoman military like wildfire. Soldiers who weren't even present at the battle are talking about the gunner who carried the shells by hand, who saved Mecidiye Fort, who struck the British battleships with his bare strength. The story grows with each telling. By the time it reaches Constantinople, people are saying he carried 5 shells, or 10, or that he threw them at the ships like stones. The myth is born. The Ottoman military command, desperate for good news after years of defeats, seizes upon Seyit Ali's story. Here is a hero. Here is something to rally around. Here is proof that Turkish soldiers can stand against the great powers and win. They order photographs, interviews, medals. Corporal Seyit is to be the public face of the Dardanelles victory. A week after the battle, officers arrive at Mecidiye Fort with a photographer. They want to capture Corporal Seyit for posterity, want to show the world what Turkish courage looks like. The plan is simple. Seyit Ali will pose with one of the 215-kilogram shells, demonstrating how he carried it. Seyit Ali, still recovering, agrees to try. They bring out a shell, position it on the ground. He crouches down, wraps his arms around it, sets himself, and then nothing. He can't lift it. His body, still damaged from the strain of March 18th, simply refuses. The shell doesn't move. He tries again. And again. Each time his muscles scream in protest. His back locks up. His arms shake uselessly. It's impossible. The strength that possessed him during the battle, that impossible surge of adrenaline and determination that let him exceed any normal human limit, it's gone. He's just a man again, subject to the laws of physics and physiology. The officers and photographer exchange uncomfortable glances. This is embarrassing. Their hero can't perform the feat he's famous for. What do? Seyit Ali, exhausted and frustrated, finally speaks. His voice is hoarse, but his words are clear. If war breaks out again, I'll lift it again. It's the perfect response, not an excuse, not an apology, a simple statement of fact. During the battle, when his country needed him, when his comrades were dying, when the gun had to be fired, then he found the strength. If such a moment comes again, he'll find the strength again. But now, in peacetime, in the aftermath, asking him to perform the feat for a photograph, his body has limits, even if his courage doesn't. The officers understand. The photographer has an idea. They'll use a wooden replica, a prop that looks like the shell but weighs far less. Seyit Ali can pose with that, and no one will know the difference. The photograph will still serve its purpose as propaganda. So they take the photo with the wooden shell. Seyit Ali, in his uniform, the false weight on his shoulders, looking determined and heroic. The image will be reproduced thousands of times, will appear in newspapers and posters, will become one of the iconic images of the Dardanelles campaign, and almost no one will know it's staged. Seyit Ali doesn't care. He's not interested in fame or glory. He's a soldier. He did his job, that's all. The medals, the promotions, the photographs, they're not his concern. What matters is that the fort held, that his crew survived, that Constantinople remains Turkish. Over the following weeks, the Dardanelles front enters a strange period of calm. The Allied fleet doesn't return. The naval bombardment, which had been almost constant for weeks, stops. The Turkish defenders use the time to repair their fortifications, to replenish ammunition stocks, to tend to their wounded and bury their dead. But everyone knows this isn't over. The Allies have invested too much to simply give up. If they can't force the strait with ships, they'll land troops. An invasion is coming. The soldiers at Mecidiye Fort can feel it. The pressure building. The certainty that the real battle hasn't even started yet. On April 25th, 1915, the largest amphibious landing in history begins. British, French, and Anzac forces storm ashore on multiple beaches along the Gallipoli Peninsula. The campaign that follows will last 8 months, will claim hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides, will become one of the bloodiest and most futile campaigns of World War I. But that's another story. Seyit Ali's moment is past. He remains at Mecidiye Fort through the land campaign, continues to serve his gun, continues to do his duty. But he never again has to perform the impossible feat that made him famous. The gun's crane is repaired. Shells are loaded normally. The war continues with mechanized efficiency. The legend, however, never stops growing. Corporal Seyit becomes Seyit Onbaşı, his rank becoming part of his name in popular usage. His story is told in barracks and trenches, in newspapers and schools. He becomes a symbol of what Turkish soldiers can achieve when they refuse to surrender, when they push beyond what should be possible. And somewhere, in some Allied headquarters, officers who planned the Dardanelles campaign look at reports and wonder,
What if that crane hadn't been destroyed? What if those 3 shells hadn't been fired? What if one man, in one moment, had simply decided that the task was impossible and given up? History turns on such moments, on single decisions made by ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. The Battle of the Dardanelles, which shaped the course of World War I, which led to the creation of modern Turkey, which ended Winston Churchill's naval career and launched the military career of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. All of it could have gone differently if one man had been less strong, less brave, less willing to do the impossible. But Seyit Ali did not give up. And because he didn't, Constantinople stayed Turkish. The Ottoman Empire survived, at least for a few more years. The war took a different path than it would have otherwise, and a peasant from a forgotten village became immortal. Chapter 9. After the thunder, the guns eventually fall silent. November 1918. Germany surrenders. The Central Powers collapse. The Ottoman Empire, bled white by years of war, agrees to an armistice. The Dardanelles defenses are dismantled. Allied ships, which couldn't force the strait by war, now steam through peacefully as occupation forces. Constantinople is filled with foreign troops. The empire that lasted 6 centuries is finished. Corporal Seyit Ali Çabuk, he's taken the surname Çabuk when Turkey adopts surnames in 1934, a name meaning quick or swift, is discharged from the army in 1918. He's 29 years old. He survived the Balkan Wars, survived the Dardanelles, survived 4 years of global conflict. Most men his age are dead. He gets to go home. He returns to Havran, to the village where he was born, carrying his few possessions and his memories. The village hasn't changed much. The same fields, the same houses, the same hard life of peasant farmers struggling to survive. But Seyit Ali has changed. He's seen things he can never unsee. He's done things he'll never speak about. The war has marked him in ways that will never fully heal. He marries a woman named Emine. They have 2 daughters, Aisha, born in 1911 before the war, and Fatma, born in 1922. He works as a forester, then as a coal miner, doing the same kind of brutal physical labor he did before the war. It's almost as if the intervening years, the battles, the heroism, the fame, never happened. He's back where he started, a working man earning his bread by the sweat of his brow. But the war isn't quite finished with Turkey. In 1919, Greece invades Anatolia, attempting to claim territory promised by the Allies. The Turkish War of Independence begins. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the officer who distinguished himself at Gallipoli, leads the resistance. The Ottoman Empire is dead, but a new nation, the Republic of Turkey, is being born in fire and blood. Seyit Ali is called up again. At 33, he's considered old for a soldier, but Turkey needs every man. He participates in the Great Offensive of August 1922, the final push that drives the Greek forces out of Anatolia. Once again, he serves with artillery. Once again, he does his duty without complaint. And once again, he survives when so many others don't. The war ends in Turkish victory. The Treaty of Lausanne in 1923 recognizes Turkish sovereignty and establishes the borders of the modern Turkish state. Seyit Ali returns home for the last time. He's 34. His body is worn out from years of hard use. His back hurts constantly from the weight he carried at Gallipoli. His hearing is damaged from years of artillery fire. He's an old man in a young man's body. His first wife, Emin, dies. He remarries, this time to a woman named Hatice. They have 3 sons, Ramazan, Osman, and Abdurrahman. Seyit Ali works whatever jobs he can find. Forester, coal miner, porter at an olive oil factory. In the last years, when his strength finally gives out completely, he makes his living cobbling shoes, patching other people's worn-out boots, because it's the only work his damaged body can still manage. In 1934, President Ataturk visits the Çanakkale region. By chance, his motorcade passes through Havran. Someone recognizes Seyit Ali, tells the president that this is the hero of Mecidiye Fort. Ataturk stops. He meets Seyit Ali personally, shakes his hand, thanks him for his service. It's a brief encounter, a few minutes out of a long day, but it means everything to Seyit Ali. The man who saved Turkey acknowledges the man who helped save Constantinople. But fame is fleeting and fickle.
After Ataturk leaves, life returns to its grinding poverty. Seyit Ali is still just a poor man in a poor village, working until his body gives out, trying to feed his family, forgotten by a nation he helped preserve. December 1st, 1939. Seyit Ali Çabuk catches pneumonia. At 50 years old, worn out by decades of brutal labor, his body doesn't have the strength to fight off infection. He dies quietly, in his home, surrounded by family. There are no grand ceremonies, no military honors, no crowds to mourn the passing of a hero, just a simple burial in the village cemetery, another grave among thousands. His village will later be renamed in his honor, Koca Seyit, meaning Great Seyit. A monument will be built, a statue will be erected, museums will display his story, schoolchildren will learn his name. March 18th will become a national holiday in Turkey, commemorating the Dardanelles victory. And at the center of that story, always, will be the soldier who carried the shells. But on that December day in 1939, none of that has happened yet. Seyit Ali dies as he lived, simply, without fanfare. A working man who once did something extraordinary and then returned to being ordinary. He doesn't know he'll be remembered. He doesn't know his name will echo through generations. He just knows he's tired, so very tired, and now he can finally rest. They bury him in the ground he defended, Turkish earth, home. The place he was born and the place he dies, the cycle complete. And if the soil of that grave is richer, more hallowed than the soil around it, well, perhaps that's fitting. Heroes should rest in the ground they saved. Chapter 10. Legacy. When ordinary men become immortal, time passes. Years become decades. The world moves on. World War I becomes World War II. The Ottoman Empire, whose defense Seyit Ali contributed to, disappears entirely, replaced by the modern Republic of Turkey. The soldiers who fought at Gallipoli die of old age, taking their memories with them. The fortifications crumble, but the story doesn't die. In 1992, more than 50 years after Seyit Ali's death, a statue is erected near Kilitbahir Castle, on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The sculptor, Hüseyin Anka Özkan, creates a bronze figure of Seyit Onbaşı carrying a shell, his face set in determination, his body straining under the weight. The statue is 4 meters tall, larger than life, which seems appropriate. It stands overlooking the Dardanelles, facing the waters where HMS Ocean and HMS Irresistible went down, where the Allied fleet turned back, where history pivoted. In 2006, the statue is moved to Mecidiye Fort itself, right next to where the original gun emplacement stood. Tourists from around the world come to see it, to take photographs, to marvel at the story. The fort has been converted into a museum. The guns are still there, maintained and preserved, and in the exhibit halls, the story of March 18, 1915, is told and retold, with Seyit Ali always at the center. Other monuments follow. A larger memorial complex is built in the village, now named Koca Seyit. It features an Ataturk statue, representing the nation he founded, standing next to a monument to Seyit Onbaşı, representing the ordinary soldiers who made that nation possible. The monument includes one of the actual 240mm shells, weighing 215 kilograms, positioned so visitors can try to lift it. Almost no one can even budge it. The physics are simply too daunting. March 18th becomes an official commemoration day in Turkey. Every year, ceremonies are held at Gallipoli. Veterans organizations march. Schoolchildren lay wreaths. Politicians give speeches about sacrifice and courage and homeland. And always, the story of Seyit Onbaşı is invoked as an example of what the Turkish spirit is capable of achieving. But what does Seyit Ali's legacy actually mean? Beyond the monuments and the ceremonies, beyond the national pride and the political rhetoric, what should we take from the story of one man carrying shells during a desperate battle a century ago? First, it's a reminder that history is made by individuals. We teach history as if it's inevitable, as if great forces and impersonal trends determine everything. But the truth is messier. The truth is that single decisions, made by single people, can change the trajectory of nations. If Seyit Ali had not carried those shells, if Mecidiye Fort had fallen silent, if HMS Ocean and HMS Irresistible had been able to bombard the Turkish defenses with impunity, the Battle of the Dardanelles might have ended differently. The Allied fleet might have broken through. Constantinople might have fallen. The entire course of World War I might have shifted. We can never know for certain what would have happened. History doesn't do controlled experiments. But we know what did happen. One man refused to accept the impossible, and because of that refusal, an empire held on a little longer. A nation was eventually born, and the world took a different path. Second, Seyit Ali's story reminds us that heroism isn't about being superhuman. It's about being determinedly, stubbornly human. Seyit Ali wasn't a demigod. He wasn't blessed with supernatural strength. He was just a strong man who, in a moment of desperate need, pushed himself beyond what he thought possible. He paid for it with blood and pain and lasting damage to his body, but he did it because it needed to be done. That's real heroism. Not the painless, consequence-free heroism of movies and myths, but the grinding, costly heroism of real people making real sacrifices. Seyit Ali didn't fly. He didn't dodge bullets. He carried heavy things and fired a gun and bled from the strain. And that was enough to change history. Third, and perhaps most importantly, Seyit Ali's story is about the gap between fame and life. He had his moment of glory on March 18th, 1915. And then what? Then he went home and patched shoes for a living. The nation he saved didn't make him rich, didn't give him a comfortable retirement, didn't ensure his family would never want for anything. He died poor, worn out, forgotten by everyone except the few people who knew him personally. There's a lesson in that. Fame is fleeting. Glory fades. The world moves on. What matters isn't the monuments or the ceremonies. What matters is the act itself, doing what needs to be done because it needs doing, regardless of what reward or recognition may or may not follow. Seyit Ali didn't carry those shells because he wanted to be famous. He carried them because his comrades were dead, because the gun had to be fired, because the enemy was coming and someone had to stand in the gap. The rest, the legend, the statue, the national holiday, all of that came later, imposed by others, built on the foundation of one man's moment of desperate necessity. Today, when you visit Gallipoli, when you walk through the battlefields and the cemeteries, when you see the memorials to the hundreds of thousands who fought and died there, you'll find Seyit Onbaşı's statue among them. It's one memorial among many. The peninsula is covered with monuments to Turkish soldiers, to Australian and New Zealand Anzac forces, to British and French troops. Every nation that fought there remembers its dead and honors its heroes. But Seyit Ali's statue is different somehow. Maybe it's because his story is so specific, so visceral. You can imagine it happening. Not easily, but you can see it in your mind. A man picking up an impossible weight. A man taking one step, then another. A man refusing to give up even when his body screams at him to stop. It's simple enough to understand, impossible enough to inspire awe. Or maybe it's because his story represents something larger than himself. Every soldier at Gallipoli was asked to do the impossible. Every man in those trenches faced death and kept fighting. Seyit Ali's feat is extraordinary, but what he represented, courage under fire, determination in the face of overwhelming odds, the willingness to sacrifice everything for something bigger than yourself, that was universal. The soldiers of Gallipoli, on all sides, were ordinary men thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Most of them did their duty and died and were forgotten. A few, like Seyit Ali, did something so remarkable it couldn't be forgotten. But in the end, they were all heroes. They all stood when they could have run. They all kept fighting when they could have surrendered. And whether their names are remembered or lost to time, they all deserve to be honored. Seyit Ali's legacy is this: ordinary people can do extraordinary things. When you strip away the myth, when you remove the patriotic rhetoric and the political symbolism, that's what remains. A man, a soldier, a human being who found strength he didn't know he had, who paid a price he couldn't really afford, who changed history without meaning to, and then went home to live an ordinary life. If there's hope in that story, and there is, it's the hope that courage isn't rare, that heroism isn't reserved for special people, that when the moment comes,
when you're faced with an impossible task and no one else can do it, you might discover that you're capable of more than you ever imagined. The shell still weighs 215 kilograms. Physics hasn't changed. But neither has the human spirit. That stubborn, magnificent refusal to accept defeat that makes ordinary men immortal. Chapter 11. Epilogue. The echo that never fades. Stand, today, on the heights above the Dardanelles. Look out over the water, where ships still pass through the narrows, where the strait that connects two seas and two continents continues to flow as it has for millennia. Close your eyes and listen. If you're quiet enough, if you let the noise of the modern world fade away, you can almost hear it. The thunder of guns, the scream of shells, the shouts of men in a language most of the world has forgotten. March 18th, 1915, is long gone. Everyone who fought there is dead. The ships that sank have rusted into the sediment. The forts have been preserved as museums. The war that seemed like it would last forever ended more than a century ago. And yet the story persists. And yet the legend grows. And yet, when people ask what courage looks like, someone will always mention the soldier who carried the shells. Why? Why does this story endure when so many others have been lost? Millions of acts of bravery occurred during World War I. Countless soldiers did impossible things under unimaginable conditions. Most of those acts died with the men who performed them, unrecorded, unremembered, known only to God and the soil that received them. But Seyit Ali's story survived because it's so perfectly human. It's not about supernatural ability or divine intervention. It's about a man pushed to his absolute limits, discovering he has a little more to give. It's about refusing to quit when quitting would be perfectly understandable. It's about doing your duty even when your duty might kill you. We need stories like this. We need to know that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary things. In an age when we're constantly told we're not enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not special enough, Seyit Ali's story reminds us that enough is determined in the moment of action, not in the accounting ledgers of history. He was a peasant, poorly educated, not wealthy, not connected, not blessed with any advantages that the world considers important. He was just strong and stubborn, and when it mattered most, unwilling to give up. And that was enough to save an empire, at least for a while. That was enough to redirect the course of a war. That was enough to write his name in stone and bronze, and in the hearts of people who will never meet him, but who recognize something true in his story. If you're watching this video, if you followed Seyit Ali's journey from that quiet village in Anatolia to the heights of Mecidiye Fort, to his final rest in Turkish soil, you've witnessed something rare, the transformation of man into legend. But remember that the legend is built on a foundation of absolute reality. This happened. A real man named Seyit Ali really did lift shells that should have been impossible to lift, really did fire the shots that damaged HMS Ocean, really did refuse to accept defeat when defeat seemed inevitable. And he did it not knowing he would be remembered. He did it not for glory or reward. He did it because, in that moment, on that day, he was the only one who could. That's the definition of heroism that matters. Not the heroism of myths and movies, where the hero always survives and is always recognized, but the heroism of real life, where you do the right thing not knowing how it will end, not knowing if anyone will ever know, doing it anyway because it needs doing. The guns of Gallipoli are silent now. The soldiers sleep. The ships that sank have been reclaimed by the sea. But the story of one man carrying the weight of nations on his shoulders, taking step after agonizing step, refusing to drop his burden even when his body screamed for mercy. That story still echoes. That story still inspires. That story still reminds us what we're capable of when we refuse to accept the limits others would place on us. Seyit Ali Çabuk was born in 1889 and died in 1939. He lived 50 years, most of them in poverty, most of them in obscurity. But for one afternoon, for a few desperate minutes during the most important battle of his life, he transcended the ordinary. He became something more, not because he was special, but because the moment demanded it, and he answered. That's the real lesson. That's the legacy worth preserving. Not the statues or the monuments or the national holidays, important as those are, but the knowledge that inside every ordinary person is the potential for extraordinary action. That courage isn't a rare commodity possessed by special individuals. That any of us, if pushed hard enough, if the stakes are high enough, if we refuse to quit, any of us might discover we're capable of the impossible. The Dardanelles still flow. The straits remain open. Ships pass through carrying cargo and passengers, most of them unaware of the desperate battle fought in these waters a century ago. But the water remembers. The stones of Mecidiye Fort remember. And we remember, because stories like Seyit Ali's are too important to forget. Because the next time you face your own impossible task, not a war, not a battle, but whatever challenge life has placed in your path, you'll have this story to draw on. You'll know that someone else, somewhere else, when it truly mattered, found the strength to carry a burden that should have broken him. And if he could do that, if an ordinary man could achieve the extraordinary through sheer determination and will, then maybe, just maybe, you can too. These are not just stories from a distant war. These are lessons written in blood and courage, carved into history by men and women who refuse to break. This is the echo that never fades, the reminder that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, that heroes aren't born but made in moments of desperate necessity, that the line between victory and defeat often comes down to one person refusing to give up. Stand with us. Remember with us. Honor the legacy of those who carried burdens too heavy to carry and carried them anyway. Because the next legend is already waiting to be written. And it might be written by you. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that courage and determination can change the world, show your support. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear that they're capable of more than they know. Because legends never die. They're reborn in every generation that refuses to surrender, in every person who stands when they could fall, in every moment when ordinary people choose to be extraordinary. The Titan of the Dardanelles has passed into history, but his spirit, the spirit of refusing to accept defeat, of pushing beyond limits, of doing what needs doing regardless of cost, that spirit lives on in all of us. We carry his legacy forward. We honor him by remembering that when the moment comes, when we're asked to do the impossible, we too can find the strength to carry the weight of worlds. Honor the past. Stand with courage and never, ever give up, because the story isn't over. The next chapter is being written right now, and you're part of it.